Hey folks, it's Lindsay Huddleston with SPS back in the building over at Veg Head, a downtown Lansing plant-based restaurant. We're here for the SPS Edge show featuring Ethan Boyd. We have a very special guest today. That is Graham Couch, the columnist for the Lansing State Journal. I get to spend a lot of time with this guy as part of the media corps with Michigan State for both football, basketball, and also the outstanding hockey player right now. And of course, we got Ethan Boyd, who's been the greatest intern on this side of the Mississippi. But Ethan, help me welcome Graham. Graham, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How's it going? Yeah, things good. For your availability. We appreciate not having to go through 2 or 3 agents to get to you, having to have your people call our people. You made yourself available. We appreciate that, man.
Yeah, every agent I've ever called has turned me down, so I'm just one cell call.
That's not it. Well, Ethan, you got someone who does a lot with writing with Michigan State sports. I mean, when he came in, you didn't have any bad will towards him or anything like that. You agreed with him and all that. He's been on Ethan since high school. What was it like having one of the most influential reporters around sitting next to you on the show today?
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling to meet this guy in person, and I always see his name on Twitter, and I'm excited to interview him and get this podcast going.
I'm just going to pull your mic up a little bit too. There you go. Oh, and by the way, Graham, I forgot something that's very important. Happy birthday, Ethan.
Yes, sir.
Ethan's 21st birthday, man. So it's good.
It's a big day. This is how he chose to celebrate his 21st. That's,
hanging out with us. That's good. So
do you remember being 21?
No, I don't. I know it happened, and something went like that. I turned 21 in boot camp in the Marine Corps, so that's a whole other story. Graham, happy to have you. Talk about the state of Michigan State sports and be part of the program. Just give me your take on where we're at with things and what you've been seeing as of late.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think overall things are in decent shape, better than they have been. You've got a lot of new blood in the coaching ranks throughout throughout different sports. You've got a lot of excitement, with things like MSU hockey right now.
Number 4 in the country right now?
Yeah, number 4 in the country.
Wow,
you've got, you've got a volleyball program people are excited about, women's basketball. I think the women's sports especially have taken a bump up. You got a new football coach, so there's natural buzz and excitement that comes with that. And then, Michigan State basketball, I think men's basketball has had a year that maybe isn't living up to the expectations people had, but it's still a team that's floor is so high that this is, you think about people are disappointed in Michigan State basketball this year, and yet they're going to be in the NCAA tournament for like the 27th straight year, whatever it is, and so there is every expectation that people have for that program was created by Izzo. So sometimes he doesn't meet his own expectations that people want, but I think things overall are in pretty good shape.
Yeah, Ethan, you have someone like Graham here, and I know you're not rushing to the box scores, but being in this community since you were at East Lansing, what is your thought and opinion of the sports writers when, and especially in this digital media age, where you get to see their comments a lot, things that they say kind of end up dictating what the community feels? I mean, just give me your overall view from an athlete standpoint.
I think it's great to have because, it gives the team publicity, and along with that, it gives the players the opportunity to be able to put themselves out there and create a platform for themselves. So I think it's very important. And without the reporters, you wouldn't really hear about the sport itself. And I think they do a great job of, kind of putting the sport out there and letting people see it.
Well, one of the things that I like, and I think MSU does this pretty well in most sports. Football is probably the most closed-off sport, but that's because football coaches are naturally paranoid. Just the way it's been most places I've ever been. But the more you get to know athletes, especially at the college level, when it is, some of them have been interviewed in high school, some of them dealt with the media in high school, but it is not is commonplace. And the more you get to do it as a college athlete, the more comfortable I think you are. I think there's an accountability point, and it's just part of the educational process. One of the things I really like that they do with the men's program with Tom Izzo is locker room is open. Practices are open.
That's a big thing because it's easy for us to take it for granted here in this area.
Yeah, I mean, nowhere else is the locker room open. Nowhere else, do you have that in the Big Ten. And what happens is players then, when they make a mistake, they have to sort of answer for it right away. There's that component. And two things. One, if you're somebody who covers a team regularly, it prevents an adversarial relationship, right? You're there in the good times, the bad times. It just becomes a conversation, and it's not. You're just talking about what happened. And I do think that, and it's one of the things I think Izzo values, and that is that, when things go wrong, you answer for them a little bit, and you answer for them right away.
I'll answer any question. I'll answer any question.
When it doesn't become like a story that lasts a week because players are available right that night or the next day or whatever it is, and I think there's value in that, and even value in the competition. When the NCAA tournament comes around and every locker room is open, you do see some teams that are a little, wide-eyed by it. Yeah, and the MSU guys are just really used to it. But I think even with football, the more you get to know guys, the more they're comfortable with you, the more you're able to, they're comfortable telling their story and you're able to share their stories. It's just, it creates a healthy relationship that sometimes, especially as you get further up in the pro ranks, gets to have an adversarial vibe.
Talk a little bit more, and we'll use Ethan as the baseline. Him finishing at East Lansing a couple years ago to being part of this. Talk about NIL, the portal, all these different changes that you witnessed, Graham, firsthand in a relatively short amount of time, and what that means for today's athlete from your perspective as a writer.
Well, I think it's something we still grapple with, because I would cover him differently than I would cover a 26-year-old pro. For example, I look at a 21-year-old or a 19-year-old differently. I mean, it's just their mistakes are different mistakes. They're not.
Does everybody take that approach?
Not entirely, but I think more do than you think. I mean, it is. I always think of it like this: everybody has a mother, right? And if you start there and you try to be fair to people, and then you have to realize to what level do they have, should they have accountability? At what age? And if they're making $46 million a year, and they're in their late 20s and they're grown up,
right?
That's different than now. So what NIL did is it created the idea that these guys pros, right? And so you wrestle with that question. I still. And then the transfer for the extra COVID year creates an older, like the MSU basketball team has 4 23-year-olds in their starting lineup. Wow. Think about that. They're older than a lot of the Detroit Pistons lineups on the floor.
Wow.
And so when you think about that, does that change how you look at somebody? And there's no question I cover a freshman different than a senior in terms of willingness to harp on something they did wrong or whatever. But I think the big thing is, regardless, it's never personal.
Right.
You never make anything personal. And but the NIL component is something I wrestle with. There are guys on the basketball team, for example, that make a pretty good amount of money.
I think people have no idea what's being made out here.
And some young guys. But does it help them to have that total out there? Does it only, should that total be out there? And I don't think it's necessarily, like, we don't know what, because this is an endorsement amount. Like, this is not a salary, even though it's treated like a salary.
Right.
But, we don't know what Chris Paul makes from State Farm.
Correct.
Right? We don't know what Aaron Rodgers makes from State Farm. Those are endorsements, those are private contracts, and that's the way NIL is treated. And as long as it's like that, even if I may know the number, I don't know that I feel comfortable putting it out there yet. I don't know that it's my business to do that.
I don't think people will be ready for what they will end up hearing. We had a conversation with one of Ethan's first guests, and the numbers he put out there were enough. And we did it from an HR standpoint. We talked about a range, but I don't think people will really be able to grasp that. And then I think a natural bias may come, because sometimes when people look at what these athletes may be making as quote-unquote amateurs and what their lifestyle and salary may be, it may be some bitterness that comes out of that. Ethan, what do you think about that when you hear the numbers being shared, or possibly?
There's definitely bitterness that goes around, but I feel like that's with everything in life. People will be envious, and that's just kind of how it goes. But definitely, that goes on.
Graham, I know we're